Hello, everyone. Looks like some of you are still connecting, so we'll give it a minute here. Make sure everyone gets connected. Okay, well, thank you for joining us here tonight. We appreciate that so many of you are here to learn more and ask questions. The district's been working with CivicMic to educate and engage your community about the fire district's need for additional resources and to understand the community's priorities. This community meeting will quickly cover topics shared at the first meeting to kind of bring everyone up to speed if they didn't attend or haven't gone to civicmic.com and watched the video. We'll also be diving deeper into some of the items that have been raised and questions that have come up from community members since our last meeting. If you have not already done so, please visit civicmic.com/Kelseyville that you can see there on the screen. To read about the district's plan for funding and improved recruitment and retention, and as well as a new station and equipment. We do have a survey that is still open, and we will be going over the results of that after the presentations. So if you go to this page here, you can see right there to take the survey and give us your feedback after tonight's meeting. We'll keep it open for probably another week just to hear from as many people as possible. So I have a few ground rules to cover to ensure that we respect everyone's time and personal viewpoints. We plan to keep this meeting to right about an hour. So if you need to hop off and would like to review the content afterwards, visit civicmic.com/Kelseyville, and the meeting will be uploaded there, the entire video. We will be holding questions until the end of the presentations. If you have questions, please write them down so you don't forget them. And to finish the meeting in a timely manner, we may need to answer some questions after the meeting, and we'll provide our contact information so you can send in your questions and we can answer those and post those to civicmic.com. So to help with the background noise and to allow everyone to hear the material that's being presented, all participants will be muted. Please respect others and stay on mute. If you notice that you click off mute during the presentations and you get put back on mute, that is Biana, who is purposely putting you on mute so we don't hear that background noise while we're giving the presentation. And then finally, CivicMic public engagement process aims to gather feedback from various demographics and diverse values. And we'd like to hear from all participants in your community. We will attempt to shield you from personal attacks or slander from anyone that is using foul language or making personal attacks. Will be moved to a private meeting room by the moderator. To regain your composure, if the unacceptable behavior continues after returning to the meeting, you will be removed from the meeting permanently and not allowed to return. So we don't expect this to happen with anyone, but I want everyone to know that your opinion is valuable and we will not allow others to disrespect you for having a different view. So with that being said, let's move on to the presentations. First presentation, we'll hear from the chief.
Good evening. Thank you, folks, for being here tonight. As Danielle had mentioned, this is our second presentation, second virtual town hall meeting. It's kind of a shame that nowadays we have to do it this way, but it is what it is. Just a quick background for some of you folks that weren't tuned in last time. My name is Joe Huggins. I'm Fire Chief at Kelseyville Fire Department. I've been with Kelseyville Fire Department for about 33 years now. Been Fire Chief for 7 years. I was a battalion chief before that for 7 years. And then on down, captain, engineer, and firefighter. So I found myself in this seat about 7 years ago after the departure of my last fire chief. We're an all-risk department. We respond to just about anything and everything you can possibly think of. Somebody calls 911, we are engaged 100% of the time, and we are staffed 24/7, 7 days a week. It's a little bit of history of Kelseyville Fire Department. And in 1927, or I'm sorry, 1925, it was the Big Valley Fire District, Fire Department back then. And in 1958, there was actually a declaration of existence certificate to actually put us on the map to make us a real live breathing fire department. That was on Main Street, Kelseyville here. There's going to be slides on that, I guess.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. So you can see the Big Valley Fire Department on the left-hand side. That was actually a little bit later, taken a little bit later. That was more like the late 60s, early 70s, probably the 70s. And then on the right again is the Kelseyville Big Valley Fire Department. Also in the late 1960s, they built another fire station out in the Clinic Riviera, which we refer to as Station 5-6. And that was built in the late 60s, and that is currently staffed 24/7, 365 days a year with one firefighter medic. The station that we're currently in now, the one that you all see on Main Street, Kelseyville, was built in 2007. And it was actually built right next to, it actually joined that station that you see there in the slide. That's where I started. And as you can see it on the left, that's the old station on the far left and the new station on the far right. And that's our Station 5-5 fire station. That's our headquarters station. That's at 4020 Main Street in Kelseyville. The current staffing here is we have Station 5-5. We have two firefighter EMS employees here 24/7, 365. And there's variable staff in here, myself, Christina at admin. Our Fire Prevention Bureau is also here, who's here 5 days a week. He was also an engineer, firefighter, engineer paramedic. As you can see in the lower picture there, Station 5-6, again, is staffed with one firefighter and one paramedic EMS employee. We currently run, again, all risk. We do 100% of our own transporting. We run all AL, advanced life support staffing. We run 2 ambulances. We have 2 ambulances here, but due to staffing and things like that, we can only run one medic at a time. With that being said, all the employees here is what we call cross staff. So the 2 individuals, whether it be a captain, engineer, or firefighter, or whatever's on duty in town, they cross staff the engines as well as the ambulances. So for an example, if there were a medical aid elsewhere, say towards Soda Bay or something like that, they would actually get in the ambulance and go to Soda Bay and facilitate the advanced life support needs or whatever they need to be doing. But in the meantime, we have a fire engine here that's completely unstaffed. So with that being said, if they're busy on another ALS transport or something of that nature, if we do break a fire somewhere in the district in Kelseyville proper, we are relying on Lakeport Fire Department and surrounding districts to help us facilitate any of the fire behavior or any of the fire incidents that we might have. So it's kind of a scary time, especially in the summertime. As we all know, when fire season comes along and we have a rash of medical aids and things like that, there's often times that our actual fire station fire engines are completely unstaffed until that medical emergency is mitigated, and then they go right back to cross-staffing the equipment. Next slide. So as we all been kind of discussing the proposed fire station in Buckingham area, the Soda Bay corridor, their current response times, and this is very up to date. We just did it again this morning, and they haven't changed much. Again, this depends on the time of day. It depends on traffic. It depends on if the firefighters are getting out of bed to go to a fire. There's going to be added an addition of minutes, whether they have to get dressed to go to a medical aid or if they get dressed and put their full turnouts on, which is timely, can be timely, and to actually get the engines going and go to a call. So from this station right here where we're sitting on Main Street, Kelseyville, to the Buckingham Country Club, and we just use that just for kind of a hub, if you will. It took an engine 18 minutes to go from here to the Buckingham Country Club area down there on the turkey track where everything comes together. And given that information, that was a firefighter who was in the engine, and when he put it in drive, he hit the stopwatch, and it took him from here to there for 18 minutes. Again, times are going to vary a little bit depending on the time of day and whether they need to get dressed or things like that. So it's an extensive response time. As we all know, anybody having a heart attack or any fire or vehicle accident or any type of emergency, time is absolutely of the essence. So 18 minutes is, that's with the warm engine, that's a pretty big response time. So from the Station 5-6 area, from the Riviera station, I had my firefighter go out, do this again today. He did it 3 times because once he was stuck behind a logging truck or some large vehicle. So we got 3 different times, but from the Riviera station to that same location in the Buckingham Country Club area was 10 minutes. And keep in mind, that's all downhill. So you're, again, depending on the time of day, whether it's commute traffic, whether, it's snowy conditions, which they get out there, or, if the firefighter has to be woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, has to get up, has to get dressed, has to start the cold engine and go responding. So all of these numbers can be adjusted to the worst case scenario. So probably, from that station to Buckingham, you're looking at 12, 13 minutes. Again, the increase on the time from this station to the Buckingham area would be close to, 19, 20 minutes. So reduction response times obviously saves lives. It keeps fires small. As I mentioned before, these fires, they don't start 100 acres. They don't start at 10,000 acres. They don't start at 40,000 acres. They start typically the size of a Coke can. So the faster you're obviously there, the smaller we can keep these fires. And that's in the whole district. We serve 97 square miles of urban interface wildland. And, we have homes that are nestled in the trees, nestled in the brush. Fuel scores are off the chart. So it's imperative that we keep our response times to a minimum. And professionally speaking, yeah, but common sense speaking, we all know that time is of the essence on any given emergency. So this is kind of one of our goals. There are several, and we'll get into those. Next slide, please. Okay, so breaking down emergency response, there are 3 basic components, Department of Emergency Response: availability, capability, and operational effectiveness. I'm sorry, I just got a low battery warning on my computer. Let me plug it in. I'm sorry for the interruption. And we're gonna go over those on the next few slides. So with the Kelseyville Fire Protection District's future goals to increase availability. So the new station located in the Soda Bay corridor, again, it is not etched in stone as to where this station would be proposed. We have some decent ideas where we would like to see it, but that would be the availability. So having those resources out there, as far as a station goes, excuse me, sorry. I don't want to lose you folks. All right. So that's, again, one of our goals, and the availability of having a station out there, and to replace inadequate equipment, meaning that, every year things, we put a lot of miles on these ambulances. We put a lot of miles on our engines, especially during fire season. I think I had mentioned it before, but our Type 3 wildland engine, it was gone almost 2 months last year. And it was bouncing all over the place last year and helping out other districts and CAL FIRE and things like that. And there was a lot of wear and tear on that engine, and they saw, the folks that were on it saw a lot of fire last summer, unfortunately. So there's always a rotation. There's always replacement of inadequate equipment. then the employees here and the community here deserves the best possible equipment that we can fund them. It's imperative. If the equipment is dilapidated, again, there goes your response times. If it's breaking down, there's no response at all. We're calling other folks to help facilitate some of our issues, but it's a ever evolving animal, unfortunately, and it's not cheap. And these things are very expensive. But you know, if when I made chief, it was one of my goals to make sure that the employees here had some of the best equipment that we could afford. And so far, we're doing okay. We're lacking in some areas, but I know when these guys and gals go out on a fire, that they're safe riding, you know, up-to-date equipment. So, and that's going to be a continued goal of mine. Is number one is you know, the safety of our employees. If my employees are safe, then that makes you folks safe. New station Soda Bay corridor. New station in the Soda Bay corridor again will allow for quicker response times in that area and improve district-wide coverage. With that being said, if I go back to that cross-staffing, this actually benefits the entire district. I know the focus of this lately and from the beginning has been on particularly a fire station, which I completely support. But there's 85 other square miles in this district, not to mention the you know, the current location, Buckingham, Soda Bay, and Riviera Heights area that needs protection as well. I know we're focused on that part of our district, which is great. And I appreciate everybody out there wanting to do good, wanting to see vast improvements in our response times. But a station out there would absolutely improve district-wide coverage in terms of moving folks around and proper resource allocation. So if town was gone, that, you know, a staffed engine in the Buckingham would be able to come here and facilitate other medical aids or any fires that may come down without stripping the station. And it goes back to adequate staffing. If we had adequate staffing here, we wouldn't have to be moving equipment as often because we would have other folks here to take the engines out. So it's kind of a, you know, it's a vicious circle, and you're always robbing Peter to pay Paul until you get to that point where you can facilitate everything out of one hub or the three hubs and not rely on so much of outside resources. A new station in the Soda Bay corridor it could improve the ISO ratings and possibly reduce homeowners insurance rates for those that are outside the 5-mile radius of a staff fire station. Some of the cost estimates. So this is all Christina and I went around and just grabbed random lots just to see what the property values are doing. And again, it's all current values. So if somebody said, oh, I have a lot, but I'm going to charge a lot more because it's the fire department, then we can't do that. And this is all public funds. And we have to stay within those lanes of purchasing property. So there can't be any price gouging or anything like that. But the purchase property, just a rough guesstimate, 2 lots out there, big enough to facilitate what we would need is roughly $160,000. With the lot clearing and the preparation of the building and all the infrastructure that goes with it is $100,000 roughly. Building of the fire station inside and out is $1.2 million. Equipment for the station, which would be an advanced life support staffed engine, would be $300,000. I know that because we're trying to purchase one currently for the other station now, Station 5-6. So that number is pretty accurate. Next slide, please. Again, inadequate equipment replacement. Current equipment, ambulance replacement. We run the tires off of these things. Some of the other ambulances that we run on our inter-facility program, we're putting anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 miles a week on these ambulances. So just the maintenance and the wear and tear on our ambulance, on our ALS staff is astronomical. I mean, it's crazy to, you got brakes, you got oil changes, you have just the overall wear and tear on the ambulances is costly. And to replace an ambulance is right around $200,000 a piece. Again, the new engine for Station 5-7, which that station would be allocated that number. So we would have 5.5, 5.6, and 5.7 out in the Buckingham area. That would have not an ambulance, but would have an advanced life support engine for the cost of $300,000. Next slide, please. Kelseyville Fire Protection District's future goals to increase capability. So the estimate of increased staffing recruitment, we're going to have to be fully staffed. Station 5.5 would need 2 firefighters. We would need an additional 1 out of Station 5.6 and an additional 6 to adequately staff the new proposed fire station in Buckingham. So that would be, and I know in the past I've said 20, 30, 10 staffing, but what this means is that it's 2 people on 24/7, 365 days a year with 3 shifts. So you'd have an A shift, B shift, C shift with 2 full-time firefighters on staff. So that would be an additional 6 bodies that we would have to hire to facilitate the needs of that station. And right now we do have a staffing shortage. Again, we're 1 shy in the Riviera and we're 2 shy in town here. And it even compounds things, especially when we're doing the whole cross staff issues that we currently do. If we had adequate staffing, then we would be able to facilitate more of our ALS or fire calls that would come down. So some of our staffing goals would include Station 5.5, now keep in mind, this is 3 shifts. Station 5.5 would have 3 firefighter EMS employees. Station 5.6 would have 2 full-time firefighter EMS employees, and Station 5.7, the new station, proposed station, would be also 2 firefighter EMS employees. Next slide, please. Okay, well, that's it. And I look forward to having some of your questions later as we go through this. And I'll move it over.
Thank you so much. Now we'll move on to Sarah Maris, and she will give you an overview of the project funding options. Sarah?
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to have folks back again, and hopefully some new folks on as well. My name is Sarah Mears with NBS, and I am helping the district to evaluate the structure of the funding mechanism that they are looking at to pay for all of these things, both the services and the new station. So with that, we'll go through a brief presentation on my end, and then promise we'll get to your questions. Next slide, please. Real briefly, our agenda this evening will be to cover some legislative and fiscal context. I promise not to spend a whole lot of time on that for those of you who listened to it last time. We'll touch on community facilities districts as a whole, look at the proposal for the Kelseyville Fire Protection District CFD, and then we will be dealing with all of your questions. Next slide. We can't talk about revenue for a special district such as the fire district in California without first starting to take a look at Proposition 13. That was a voter approved initiative in 1978 that put a 1% rate cap on the value of your property for purposes of general taxes, and limited the increase of that value to 2% each year. So in terms of just raising, additional general revenue, that is not an option for the district. They must look outside of general taxes to something else, like a special tax or other funding mechanism. That reference for you for Proposition 13 is California's Constitution, Article 13A. Next slide, please. All right, thank you. So after we have Proposition 13, as a reaction to that, there are lots of other funding mechanisms that start to be used. We come up with another voter-approved initiative in 1996 called Proposition 218. That gives us very strict rules on benefit assessments, including an engineer's report, specifies the protest ballot proceeding and approval methodology for an assessment, as well as deals with the other type of charge with it, which is a property related fee. So we get some additional guidance about how all of these additional funding mechanisms work, those that are outside of general property tax, with this voter initiative as well. And that is encapsulated in California's Constitution, Articles 13, C and D. Next slide, please. Lastly, because California loves its voter initiatives, we have Proposition 26 in 2010, which adds the definition of tax to the Constitution and tells us that a special tax requires a 2/3 vote. When it tells us what a tax is, though, it does so by exclusion. It tells us that a tax is anything but various charges, including some fees and assessments. So again, just giving us more clarity on all of these different funding mechanisms that are available to the district outside of general property tax. And that, again, is part of California's Constitution, Articles 13, C and D. Next slide, please. So now to touch on the Community Facilities District Act. It's the Mello-Roos Community Facilities Act of 1982. This is the law under which we are proposing to finance the new station and fund the additional services. The CFD Act requires that we come up with a reasonable special tax methodology and apportionment of rates. This is a tax, and so we are looking at a 2/3 voter approval in order to move forward with the tax itself. And if you'd like more information about the Community Facilities District Act, you can refer to Government Code Section 53311. Next slide. So just a little more on community facilities districts so that you're familiar with kind of what they are and how they work. They're not benefit based. They require that the special tax, again, is reasonable, that we come up with a methodology that is a reasonable metric. We do have to ensure that we are in compliance with the district, the fire districts, local goals and policies. So those are goals and policies that they will set with respect to utilizing the CFD. And we can fund, because we're looking at, in this case, a registered voter vote, in order to approve the CFD, we can pretty much fund any services that you all might approve through that vote. Again, 2/3 is the threshold that we're looking at. CFDs are used throughout the state for many different things. Sometimes they're used only for facilities to construct infrastructure. Sometimes they're used only for services, whether that's police and fire, sort of those public safety services. They can be used for park maintenance, road maintenance, flood and storm protection. All of those sorts of services may be funded with the CFD. Obviously, the Fire Protection District doesn't provide a lot of those services. Or they can do both facilities and services, which is what we're proposing to do here. So we're looking at, again, the fire station facility, as well as the funding of the staffing for additional fire services. Next slide, please. Wanted to give you a map of the boundaries, and this is actually a map of the Kelseyville Fire Protection District. So just in case you're not familiar with kind of where the lines are for the district itself, the Community Facilities District is proposed to have the same boundary as the Kelseyville Fire Protection District. Next slide, please. This is the same cost estimate information that you saw if you watched the last presentation. The construction of the fire station and some of the equipment to be provided is estimated at $2.4 million. The annual debt service and administration costs on that debt is estimated at roughly $200,000 a year. And then the annual staffing costs, again, those additional firefighters, that's estimated at about $1,215,000 each year. Next slide, please. And we will pause here, and I know we have folks on the phone, so I will take a moment to read some of these rates to you, and also allow those of you looking at the screen to kind of absorb what you're seeing here. This is what we are proposing in terms of a total special tax rate for various types of property within the CFD. Residential property, primarily your single family residential, is proposed at $175 per unit.
Sarah, can I just stop you real fast? I see a lot of people rapidly writing. I just want to let everyone know that these rates are also available on civicmic.com/Kelseyville. So the boundary map and these rates, you can find them there as well if you miss one of the rates that she's reading off.
And the presentation will be available online later as well. So, so just going back, I'll start again. Residential property per unit is $175. Mobile home park units, mobile home site units are $122 per unit. Multifamily residential, which would be apartments, duplexes, or triplexes, is $122 per unit. Vacant property is categorized by acreage or size. So up to 5 acres is $175, 5 to 10 acres is $350, 10 to 50 acres is $522, and greater than 50 acres is $870. Those are all per parcel amounts. Agricultural property is also broken up by size, with the same size categories. So up to 5 acres of agricultural is $87 per parcel. 5 to 10 acres is $175. 10 to 50 is $262, and greater than 50 acres is $435 per parcel. Within non-residential, we segregate out resort property, which is $175 per acre. And any other non-residential property is based on building square footage. So building square footage up to 2,500 is $350 per parcel. Building square footage of 2,500 up to 5,000 is $696. Building square footage of 5,000 up to over 5,000 and up to 15,000 is $1,045. And building square footage over 15,000 is $1,740 per parcel. So again, these will be online later. They are on civicmic.com. So, and we can all circle back after the presentation if anyone wants to. I'll have that up on the screen a little bit longer. Next slide, please. I know this is a little hard to read on the presentation, but this slide really shows the formation process of the CFD. And we haven't started yet. We're not even on the start box there. But the process itself that I'll describe to you is that the very first step of the process is that we are adopting those local goals and policies that I mentioned. And from there, there's a resolution of intention that the board considers. That resolution of intention includes the boundary map of the CFD that we shared, and it includes a document called the rate and method of apportionment. The rate and method of apportionment is the document that tells you how the tax works. It provides all of those rates that I just showed you, and it also talks about how property is classified, what all of the definitions are about how the tax works. And the resolution of intention also fixes the time and place of a public hearing, which is the next step. There's another resolution at the same time. There's a resolution of intention to form the district, as well as a resolution of intention to incur debt, because there would be a debt obligation related to the construction piece. Fast forward to at least 30 days, but not more than 60 days after that board action on those resolutions of intention, we hold a public hearing and determine whether there is a majority of voters present and presenting written protest at that meeting. If not, then we are able to proceed with the board considering the resolution of formation and the resolution to incur debt. So at that point, we're saying we've held a public hearing, there's no majority protest, we are forming the district, and we're authorizing the incurrence of debt. Now we need to go out to voters and hold an election as a confirmation of that. And so that's when we hold our election. The election is held at least 90 days after the public hearing. And so that is a regular election like you might be familiar with, though it would likely be a mailed ballot election, not one that you have polls open and so forth. And then we get those election results. If the election results don't show that we have 2/3 of registered voters within the boundary of the district voting in favor of the proposition, just like any other tax measure you might be voting on, then we don't have a funding mechanism and you'll never be charged anything. If we do have the 2/3 voter support, then we would proceed with some additional actions, including the board certifying the election results and adopting an ordinance which would allow for the collection of the special tax on the property tax bills on an annual basis. And then there would be steps to issue the actual debt in order to construct the fire station. Next slide, please. And I wanted to touch on this just to make sure that we're answering kind of those questions about how this all works in the longer term. Of course, this is all dependent on the vote and the approval of the CFD. But if the CFD is approved, then we go into some ongoing annual tasks. So we're looking at an annual basis at levying the special tax on the property tax bills for each parcel within the boundary of the CFD that is subject to the special tax. With that, we're looking at when you issue debt, there are requirements about various reports that must be made. We are looking to ensure on an annual basis that folks are paying their property tax bills in a timely manner so that the special taxes are collected and that debt repayment can occur. There are various other reports that are occurring throughout the year, but this gives you a sense that there is an ongoing sort of annual component to this that we would be looking at throughout the course of the year. Next slide, please. I included some information here about fund management because that seemed to be one of the more frequent questions that was being asked of the community. So I wanted to touch on just a couple of things here with this slide. I mentioned special tax funds are collected on the property tax bill. So if you remember looking at a recent property tax bill, you have your ad valorem or value-based tax that is in one section, and then you have your special charges, direct assessments. There's a few different words that are used for that section, but it can include things like mosquito and vector control, or maybe a school, has a charge, something like that. And this would be in that section. It's one of those direct assessments that would be added to the property tax bill. So the funds are collected by the county with the general property taxes. And from there, they are apportioned to the district. So after they're collected, the funds go straight into the Kelseyville Fire Protection District accounts. I mentioned the formation process, including the resolution of intention, resolution of formation, and so forth. Those documents specify in detail what the funds collected from the CFD can be used for. They specifically list the facilities that are going to be constructed. They list the services that are going to be provided. So this money can't be spent on anything other than what is listed in those documents. The fund balances on an annual basis are included in the Kelseyville Fire Protection District audit. And there is annual reporting required, especially because there's some debt associated with this. There's even more reporting required to the board of the district to an organization called CDAC, which is the California Debt and Investment Advisory Commission. And if the bonds are publicly sold, there can be disclosure requirements and so forth around that. So there is reporting and accountability built in to the process itself. And I know at least a couple of people asked about, what if there are surplus funds? What if we think that the fire station is going to cost $2.4 million? Maybe it only costs $2 million. Somehow they find a great deal on the land, or something like that. What do we do at that point? The first thing I want to mention about that is that the authorization we're looking for right now is a maximum authorization. That is the maximum amount of debt that might be incurred. So it doesn't mean that the district has to issue that much debt. It could be that if there's a great deal, if a cost estimate for the construction of the second station comes in lower than anticipated, they can issue less debt than they authorized. So there are protections there that there is an additional step of the process after the formation of the CFD is complete. After that election, there's an additional step going back to the board one more time to authorize the actual bonded indebtedness. And at that point, we'll be much closer to understanding what those costs are. We'll have better information. We'll know, we'll be closer to the actual debt issuance to understand where interest rates are at that time. It's very difficult right now to estimate what interest rates are going to be like in a year or so. So there are some protections, again, built in there. It's a multi-step process. The board has to authorize. If they ended up issuing $2.2 million in bonds and all of the costs came in at, say, $2.1 million, so there is a little bit of surplus there, that can be used for as a levy credit in the following year. So it would reduce everyone's maximum special tax, or it can be used for additional maintenance if there's something else needed. It really depends on the dollar amount and what you're looking at. If it's a small amount of money, there are a lot of factors that go into that analysis, but there are ways that is used, but that money can only be used again for the purposes that are listed in the CFD formation documents. Next slide, please. I guess with that, we will open it up for questions.
No, I'm sorry, Sarah. We're going to go ahead and go through the survey next, just the survey responses, and then we'll move on to some questions. So not quite yet. Sorry, Sarah got everyone excited. So I just wanted to share with this group the results of the second survey so far. As I mentioned, the survey will stay open if you haven't taken it and you would like to. But I wanted to go through those with you so you could see what other members of the community are responding with. So the first question was just to gauge if the person taking the survey lived within the service area. For those on the phone, it says I live within the service area, and we had 94% respond yes. So 6% are outside of the service area. Next slide. Question 2 said, I attended the community meeting on April 29th, and we had 78% say no, that they didn't. So it's interesting when we get to some later questions that people feel there's sufficient information. We do know that a lot of people have signed up to receive updates through CivicMic and visited the website and asked questions, but didn't necessarily attend the first meeting. So that's why we kind of covered everything quickly. Again tonight that we covered in the first meeting. Next slide. Question 3, I feel sufficiently informed about the district's reasoning for potentially forming a fire community facilities district to fund additional fire and EMS services. And there we have, there's 5 different categories, but I'm going to lump strongly agree and agree together with 77% there. Next slide. Question 4, I feel sufficiently informed about the district's reasoning regarding the location of the proposed fire station. And again, the agrees are at 67% there, with a good percentage neither agreeing nor disagreeing. So that typically means that they either don't have enough information, or they don't feel it's relevant in making the decision. Next slide. Question 5, I'm satisfied with the number of fire stations that already exist in our community. And overwhelmingly, that response was no, with well over almost 80% there. Next slide. Question 6, I feel that a new station would be beneficial for residents in our community. And we have 84% that responded either strongly agree or agree, with most of those in strongly agree. Next slide. Question 7, I'd like to see each fire station fully staffed at all times. And there we have a response of 81% that agree, either strongly agree or agree. And question 8, I'm aware of the proposed special tax amount to be placed on my parcel. This is where I said this is interesting that a lot of the individuals that were responding didn't attend the first meeting, but here we have 87% of the responses said yes, they are aware of the proposed special tax amount to be placed on their parcel. And question 9. I support the district informing a community facilities district to fund additional fire and EMS services. And there we have a 77% yes with strongly agree and agree. So with that, the district will be moving forward into the formation phase. They went through this public engagement process, having these meetings, sharing information to educate the community, to see if the community was in support of this and make sure that they weren't only representing a small group of the community. And because of these survey results and the responses that we've received from the community, the district is looking to move forward, to move to the voting process. Of course, still we have to see, as Sarah mentioned, there has to be a 2/3 approval rating, but the district is going to move forward to that next step. So now, before we move into questions, I have a couple of members of the community that have asked to speak. I'm going to call on them, but first, when they're done, we'll move to questions. And when we ask questions, I'll just say, does anyone have a question? If you're on the phone, *6 can unmute you, and just say your name. And once I hear your name, I'll call on you, whichever one I hear first. It's not as chaotic as it sounds. Please stick to one question at a time so everyone can get an opportunity to ask their question. I know a lot of people have like 5 questions back to back, but ask the most important one in case that's your only opportunity. And yeah, please try and avoid grandstanding, listen to other people's questions so we're not answering a lot of the same questions over and over. So with that being said, I have a member of the community who had asked to speak, Jim Dowdy. Jim, are you?
Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. So, hello, everyone. My name is Jim Dowdy. I am the president of the local Professional Firefighters Association Union. We wanted to let everybody know that we back this measure 100%. As someone who has worked for this department since 1997, myself and other firefighters live and are raising their families in the community. Ultimately, our goal is to go home at the end of the shift. Having additional staffing resources ensures that objective is met while also providing the best service we can provide to our residents and community. We've been operating at the same staffing level since I started here. However, in that time, our call volume has tripled, but our staffing has remained the same. The benefit of having a third station not only allows it for a quicker response time, but more resources and personnel in the event that there is a fire. It provides quicker response times to bring life-saving equipment to individuals who are experiencing medical emergencies in hopes of providing for a better outcome. It is for these reasons, among others, we are supporting this. You will be seeing members of our union out in the community promoting this in the next several months. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Is Cathy Andre on the call? I saw her earlier, but I do not see her now. Cathy, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Let me just click in here. I'd first of all like to just reiterate what Sarah brought up about this is a measure completely separate from the county. This has absolutely nothing to do with the county. All of the funds for this go directly to the Kelseyville Fire Protection District to benefit all of the residents of the KFPD district. And I think that's a really important distinction to make because, you know, we've all had experiences with the county and everything on some level. And I feel very confident that this is quite a structured and well-managed program as far as the operation of the funding, the tracking of the funds and things like that. I feel very, very confident that all of that will be managed judicially and fairly and confidently. So I'm with the Riviera Heights Homeowners Association. I'm also a co-chair of the North Canocti Fire Safe task force that we put together for Fire Station 57, and we've been working with Chief Huggins and KFPD and now the union. I would like to again remind all of our homeowners and residents throughout Kelseyville, a new station will be critical for rapid response, increased response times, for life-saving measures. We have to improve the staffing shortages in this community. It is shocking. We are down dismally in staffing, and we need the funds to be able to support Chief Huggins and the union in getting qualified staffing and retaining them. And in addition to that, the insurance is a very, very important factor in this process. Having a fire station within a 5-mile radius of Buckingham and Riviera Heights will certainly affect the probability of having our ISO rating reduced from a 10, which is the worst, down to possibly a 5. And that will bring down our insurance rates. No guarantee, absolutely no guarantee. We all know that, but the probability is very strong. And I think that is one of the best opportunities that we have. The other thing I just really want to reiterate also is how thinly spread the coverage for responding to these events are, to wildfire events, to structure fire events, to medical emergencies. There's simply not enough staff. And when we pull someone away from Riviera to come down to Soda Bay and help in Buckingham or Riviera Heights, we're leaving them naked. They are absolutely vulnerable and have no coverage at that point. When KFPD goes out and responds to help Lakeport or a wildfire rollout like they are required to do, we are so vulnerable by the sheer lack of staffing it leaves, and it's just not safe, and it's not the way I know that the chief would like to operate his district. So I would like to thank the chief. I would like to urge all of our members to please support and vote for this measure, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Mhm.
Okay, now we will open up to questions. If someone has a question, just go ahead and say your name.
John Usry.
Oh, yes, John.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
I don't have a question. I just talked with Kathy yesterday and Danielle today, and Kathy, was there any, you just wanted me to, was there some info? I have insurance agencies here and in Texas, and she had mentioned, we were chatting about some of the insurance ramifications of the new station, which it sounds like you guys have pretty well all, gone through that a little bit, but I like what Kathy just said. And there is no guarantee of a big reduction, but if you go from a PC10 to a PC5, there's a huge rating factor just in that one issue. The problem is since 2012, we've had satellite rating, slope, hillside. My house used to be just up fairway from Riviera Market, not even a quarter to a third of a mile from the station. And the house down the road, 4 houses from me, had a very favorable preferred rating. Mine was at the edge of a draw down a hill, and I had fire line issues that couldn't get me a good rating. So, I mean, it's not like the old days where the zip code would define what you were going to get. And that being said, so if if you keep in mind, protection class is a huge one. As long as there's within 5 miles, ISO rating, fire station, and hydrants and that kind of thing, you're going to see one of the factors come into play that's going to help mitigate some of that increase. But that doesn't mean that you still won't have brush and fire line issues. And the Riviera associations are doing an incredible job of mitigating some of the brush stuff. I mean, they're probably one of the most progressive areas that I've seen in a long time. And that's a huge plus in the fire side or the insurance side. But again, it may still be a factor of some of the higher risk companies or the FAIR plan as being the option. It's just that you'll be able to get that one factor out of the way that says, hey, these guys are within 10 minutes. These guys can get to my house. There's access. It's going to help in that regard. So I just wanted to mention that and just commend everybody's efforts on what you guys are doing to pull all this off. It's a great job.
Thank you, John. I did receive a question here asking if we know how many registered voters are within the proposed district and what percentage of those voters contributed to the survey. We are working on getting that number, the number of registered voters, and we'll share that on civicmic.com/Kelseyville as soon as we have it. And no, we do not know how many of the members' survey responses were from those registered voters. We're basing our decision to move forward on just the percentage of response that was in support. So, any other questions? Yes, Stella, you can unmute by the bottom left corner.
Okay, got it. It seemed like you said that we've got to get a 2/3 majority of eligible voter approval. What if this is an election where a lot of people don't vote? Then what?
The vote is counted based on votes received, not total eligible voters.
Okay, great. I was hoping I had misunderstood that. That's it.
Thank you, Stella. Deanna, did you have a question you want to read from the chat?
I actually have a couple of questions. So one of the questions is the ballot initiative going to have language to prevent any surplus of funds to be used for nothing other than to pay down debt? And that was the first question.
Okay, Sarah?
So I'm not sure that the ballot wording itself, that of course is limited to 75 words. I don't know that we'll be able to include that in our 75 word limit, but I mean, again, the funds are used only for the purposes that they are levied, which would be identified in that resolution of intention and the resolution of formation.
The next question is, will language prevent the funds from being used to increase salaries?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the point of some of the funding here is to provide for additional staffing. So, yeah, I don't know, Chief, if you have any thoughts on this, but I would assume that at some point those folks over time would receive some sort of pay increase over the years as they are in those positions. So I don't know that it's no increase to pay, but it is meant to fund those additional positions and not increase pay for existing positions. Hopefully that was clear enough.
Yeah, that's correct, Sarah. And also the biggie of that is recruitment and retention of qualified people. You know, we're blessed right now with some very highly qualified individuals, and you know, so to recruit more of these individuals and to retain the folks that we currently have, yeah, that's all of that came into play as far as funding. You know, there's so many different areas, and we're a rural area, obviously. We don't make as much money as, say, somebody over the hill in Napa or even in Mendocino County. But what happens is we become a training ground. So, and the sheriff's department does the same thing. They experience the same thing. The fire service in the county is experiencing the same thing. So they get here, they get trained, we pay them to get trained, and then they get highly qualified, and then they hop over the hill, or they leave for some other reason, whether it be personal reasons or family reasons, or just a higher salary. So not that we can compete with places like Napa or Menlo Park or other areas in the state, but what I have found over the years is that the people that are here are the people that want to stay here. Like Captain Dowdy there, he's been here forever, grew up here. We have several employees that way. If we can train them or continue their education, because we're always learning, and retain these employees, then yes, absolutely, some of the funding would absolutely go to that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So I actually have some more questions in here.
Let's go ahead and ask some others that are out here to keep people from sending them in the chat. Colleen, did you have a question? I see you took off mute.
I do. Thank you. So first of all, thank you guys very much. This has been very informative. For those of us who have been fortunate to have second homes in the area who do not have an opportunity to vote, how can we support the initiative and the effort outside of primarily getting the word out and financially? Some of us may also have an option of changing our voting address to participate. Are there other things that I'm missing that we can do to help support this?
I think that you hit the nail on the head with both of those. You know, the option to change to be a registered voter within the proposed district, and then Jim, you could contact through CivicMic. Feel free to contact us, and we can get you in touch with the union representatives that will be doing some work on more outreach and campaigning to the communities. So if you're interested in that, please email me or give me a call, and I can get you over to the right person who will be handling that.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Hi, Howard Bundock.
Yes, Howard, go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to know, are Riviera Heights, Buckingham, and Riviera West all within a 5-mile radius of all the sites that you're considering?
Yes, so there would be an overlap from the Riviera downside, and there would be an overlap from the Kelseyville proper side. So yes, it would overlap roughly. I want to say roughly a half mile to a mile and a half overlap.
No, but
so
I mean,
it would encompass. I'm sorry.
I mean the new station. No one in Riviera Heights, Riviera West, or Buckingham would be more than 5 miles away from that new station?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Bianna, do you want to go ahead and read one of the others that are in the chat?
Sure. The other question is, what insurance companies have you spoken with to give residents a break on insurance?
So I can answer that quickly. The district is not in the insurance business. So, and they want to be very clear that, you know, there are no guarantees about a reduction in rates because of the location of the station. But some of the individuals who have been working with the district on the new station side of this proposal have reached out to various insurance agents. And John, who is still on the phone here and spoke a little bit earlier, he is an actual insurance agent. He was invited to this meeting in case there were questions that he could answer. So I hope that answers your question. Do you have another one in the chat, Bianna?
Yes. Will there be language in the tax text that allows for road improvement for fire truck access?
The short answer is no. The district does not provide road improvements. Chief, I don't know if you want to add to that, that was not considered as part of the measure.
That's correct, sir. It was not part of the measure. If you live on a county road, that's a county road responsibility. If you have private property, it's not the fire district's responsibility to maintain your access or egress to and from your residence. So yes, that's not part of the funding, part of the measure.
Chief, any other questions from anyone on the call here? Again,
DJ
if you're,
Kennedy?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
DJ Kennedy.
Yes, DJ, go ahead.
I worked for the fire department for many years and understand the need for the money, and will be voting yes on this. But I live in Kelseyville proper, where you're asking a lot of my neighbors to pay 10 times what they're currently paying for a station that's response is further than Station 50 and Station 65. I understand the benefit for the Riviera Heights, Riviera West, and the Buckingham communities. So I'm just asking what I can tell my neighbors that they're getting in increase of service for Kelseyville proper to help them to vote yes on this.
So good question, DJ. Thank you. So in the addition of a station, a staff station, and additional equipment, as you well know, we're always allocating resources. So if the main station were down, we're stripped on a fire or in Lakeport or somewhere outside the district or even in the district, additional staffing, additional equipment would be available to cover additional or facilitate additional calls, whether it be medical aids or fires. So it would be a movement of equipment and personnel resources. So the addition would absolutely be a benefit to the whole district.
So Chief, just that, so to make sure I heard you correctly, if there's a call and the Main Street station goes out to that call, and maybe it's in Riviera Heights, but someone right across from the station has an emergency, they may not receive the response time that you would expect because Correct. That unit is out on a call. So the coverage really benefits the entire community, even though logically, when you think I'm right by a station, you would think you have a better response time, but that's not always the case. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct, Danielle. So yeah, once this station is committed on an incident, it's typically unstaffed for the duration of that incident. And if we do have a back-to-back medical aid or another incident within an incident or whatever, we highly rely on outside resources such as Lakeport or Station 65, Lower Lake Station, or even South Lake County resources to facilitate our incidents.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Janet Bell, yes. You can press the unmute is the bottom left of your screen there. Just click on the microphone.
Okay.
There
Can you
go.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. My concern is we live at the very end of the Riviera out on Wheeler and right above West Winds, and from Soda Bay Road out to Glasgow Grave or 29, Point Lakeview is really bad as far as dry things and that. We're really concerned, who covers that area? Would it be these fire departments or is it CAL FIRE?
So in this kind of a two-part question. So in the summertime, we do have a CAL FIRE presence. They help facilitate wildland fires. They are also available to respond to vehicle accidents or medical aids within our district. The station that's staffed by CAL FIRE is up on Highway 175 at the intersection of Red Hills Road. That station is Kelsey Cobb, and it's typically not staffed all year long, but during the fire season, it is staffed. But to answer your question, in case of a wildland incident in that area, that is all state responsibility area, and that would be a CAL FIRE incident. Kelseyville Fire Department would respond. We would help out in any way, shape, or form to fight and fire. But ultimately, the incident lies in the state responsibility area. So that would be CAL FIRE.
Okay, thank you very much. That answers something that we've been wondering about. My husband's a retired firefighter, but he has a hearing problem, so I'm asking.
We all do. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Janet.
Okay, thanks.
Bianna, did you have any additional questions in the chat?
I have, what is being done for seniors on fixed incomes?
I don't think, Sarah, I don't think that there is a provision for seniors.
Correct. We are not looking at any provision for senior or reduced income for this particular measure.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Stella, go ahead.
I heard that the company or whatever that drops the fire retardant stuff, whatever that is, has decided to give up the area because they said that they could get more money elsewhere. If that's the case, how does this affect our stations?
So that is, so what you're referring to is Cal Fire Aircraft Division. The helicopters, matter of fact, they just got a brand new helicopter on top of Boggs Mountain this year. And all of the firefighting aircraft, the retardant planes that you see, the bombers, they come over the hill from Ukiah Air Base. But that, I would say that statement, wherever you heard it, would be absolutely false. They have an obligation, they have a responsibility to state responsibility areas, and they just can't cut things out like that. So that's a false statement.
All right, great. I was hoping you'd say that.
Well, thank you for clearing that up. Any other questions from the group? Okay, Bianna, did you have other questions in the chat, or did we get through them?
There's just a couple more. One is, can you please verify whether the new fire station will also be within 5 miles of homes located in Soda Bay?
I'm sorry, the location one more time?
Within 5 miles of homes located in Soda Bay.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. Bianna, the next one that you have in the chat there, do you want to read that?
Sure. We are in the area called Soda Bay Terraces. What is the address of the proposed fire station?
So right now, you know, especially without the funding, we are just looking at a general area that would encompass that 5 miles for the folks, the majority of the folks, or all the folks that are outside that 5 mile radius. So we don't have an address as of yet. We have a general location. We can't fudge too far one way or the other because we're trying to maintain that circle of 5 miles. So we have a general idea, whether it be in the Buckingham area or the Riviera Heights area, or, you know, in the Soda Bay corridor there, is kind of what we're after to maintain the integrity of that 5 mile radius for everybody involved. So as far as an address, we don't have one yet. We don't even have a piece of property looking that we're not even looking at it right now. We're just trying to get over this hump to see if it's even feasible to do so.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, any other questions from the group? I know we said we're going to try and keep this to an hour. We've actually kept most participants on. Normally we see people dropping off after an hour, but all of you have held on with us. So we'll take a couple more questions if we have them. Any other questions from the group? Okay.
Hi, I'm Jeannie.
Hi, Jeannie.
Hi, I just have a very basic question, and I don't know if I missed this, but I'm just wondering, why is there no federal or state money available for a new station?
Chief, can you answer that?
What, the state funding for the new station?
State or federal money available? Do all communities have to resource this way and to get in California to get a new fire station?
So there are programs. So there are programs that are grant funded. However, it's not. It's a one-time deal. So even if we were successful in gaining some sort of government funding or things like that to even build a station, it's a one-time fund deal, and we could not we could not sustain it. So we would sustain it for a year, get the firehouse built, but we couldn't maintain the employees or the equipment, and we couldn't staff it with what's available now. So to answer your question, there's really no type of funding mechanism that would fund and maintain and sustain the fire station or the staff for the duration. And that's kind of our goal, is to, once this is built, to actually sustain it for 20, 30 years or forever, or not just build it and not be able to staff it. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, do other communities, do they do an increased sales tax? What do other communities do?
I can speak to that to some degree, and there are a variety of funding mechanisms that other communities turn to, whether that's a community facilities district or sales tax measure or some other type of tax measure. As I mentioned, they cannot increase their general funding in any way without going to one of these other options, which is a tax, an assessment, or a fee. And so for this type of service, a tax is probably the most used. Some communities are able to get developers to pay for stations if they are, building large new projects or something like that. But those are probably little less common than raising funds through some type of additional tax in the community.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. If you have questions that you think of after we end the call here, please reach out to us. Visit civicmic.com/Kelseyville to take the survey if you haven't done so. We will get contact information from Jim Dowdy to put on the website if you would like to participate in spreading awareness about the special tax measure. And feel free to reach out, 1-800-676-7516. My name's Danielle, with any questions you have, because if you have a question, most likely some of your neighbors have the same question. So we'd like to get that information out to as many people as possible. So again, thank you to everyone who joined us tonight, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.